Hi, in this video, I'm going to walk you through the papers in the curriculum unit plan. This is the second major assignment, and it is, for those of you who are in the READ program, an artifact for your portfolio. So let's take a look, because it's best if you have printed out some documents to help you as I explain. The first document you should have printed out is the curriculum unit project outline. I'm going to be talking about this. Make sure you've printed out or are looking at the rubric. Additionally, you should be looking at the appendix and the curriculum unit lesson plan outline. And I will refer to those as we go along. Now, let me begin by saying that this curriculum unit plan is an extension of your case study. In your case study, you identified several weaknesses and perhaps strengths of the existing unit. Now, you're going to rewrite the unit, addressing those specific 10 parts from the case study. So, there are three major parts to the curriculum unit plan. The first one is the paper, which should be from 8 to 12 pages long. Now, if it's a little bit over 12 pages, that's okay. But if you've written 20 pages, you need to look at condensing that. The second part, then, is the appendix. This appendix I will refer to a little bit later on. This is the how are you going to do what you've discussed in the paper. And the third part includes your bibliography. And that's important because it will identify the student materials you will use. Okay, so remember, there will be two kind of reference sections. There will be a reference section for your paper, the first part, and those are the professional references you've used, like our textbooks, the articles that you've read, or some of the videos you've watched. There will be a bibliography section for that appendix, and this includes some of the children's books if you're teaching elementary school, perhaps some of the videos you may share if you're teaching older children. So those are examples of the differences between the reference section for the paper and the bibliography section for the appendix. So let's take a look at the curriculum unit project. And as it states on here, there are several bulleted points on the first page that discuss the entire project. So let's move on to discussing the first part of the project, which is your 8 to 12 page paper. And this part should focus on your own thinking, your philosophy about what you gleaned from that case study. Does this unit need to do more to encourage English language learners? Should it use more alternative literacies? This paper should really explain your thinking about it. I want to know your beliefs, and you should cite those beliefs using, of course, APA format. And so if you use the level 2 headings of APA, you should begin with an abstract that talks about your unit, introduces it to us. And then on the second page of the curriculum unit are listed all of those different categories that you will address. And remember, unlike some of those parts of the case study, these are not to be answered as questions, but written in a text format, written like a paper. So you will discuss that background of your unit. That was part 1 from the case study. And then I want you to talk about your own theory of content area literacy, your beliefs. Some of these ideas could be taken from the objectives I've set forth in the syllabus, or even some of the objectives that appear right on the rubric. So take a look at those. You spent a lot of time talking about disciplinary discourses in your case study. So there are some questions that I've listed here to help guide you as you write that section of the paper. Now, when we come to the objective section, think about what is there and what should be there. Are there some literacy outcomes that have really not been addressed in your unit, in your content area unit, that should be addressed? So take a look at those. You don't have to go into a great amount of detail on this, but mention some of those. Next, we have the cultural responsiveness. And this is how you need to think about, does your unit really meet the needs of the identified students? I know some of you have already done a wonderful job in your case study of identifying this. You can use those right in this paper, in this section. And the same goes for the English language learners. Now, when we get to the use of multiple literacies and texts on the paper, I've suggested that rather than really writing out a big section, you'll probably want to have an introduction to it, but that you include a chart discussing the kinds of texts you will be using, and you probably should mention at least 10 to 12. The next section involves strategic reading and learning, and this is the before, during, and after phase. And you want to discuss how the new strategies, or perhaps the enhanced strategies you will use, meet the needs of your students in the literacy area of science, social studies, math, music, whatever area you have. Also, talk about classroom organization and practices. As we discussed with the ELL section, we want to be sure we are putting children or students in small groups to address their needs. And then finally, in this section, you want to look at assessment. And this is not only assessment of the students, which I hope will go beyond a test or an essay. Think creatively, but also think about yourself. How will you assess that this unit is a success for your students? What will you be looking at? So that's the paper. Now, a lot of times people wonder, how long should each section be? Here's a good rule of thumb. If you look at the rubric, some sections are given 4 points. If it has 4 points, about half a page. If it has 6 points, you should, let me see, what did I write down? If it has 6 points, probably about 1 page. And if it has 8 points, it should be about a page and a half. Of course, that's just a rule of thumb. Everybody's unit is different. So consider those as major guidelines to you. You do not need to adhere to them specifically. So let's take a look now at the appendix. And the appendix, and I've kind of included the bibliography in the explanation here. And if you think of this as the what you've written, of the what part of your paper, if you've suggested certain strategies for the during reading, explain those strategies. What are you going to use? Give some samples of this. Now, if it's like a KWL chart, I know what that is. You don't have to explain everything in detail. In this part, you can just use short phrases, you can use words. And so that is absolutely just fine. So you're going to be filling out this daily lesson plan for about 10 to 15 days. And again, please don't think of it as a full lesson plan the way you may have done as an undergraduate. These are just short phrases that answer each of these questions. And then copy this page for the 10 to 15 days of your unit. And behind that, then, please provide samples. You can take screenshots of websites you might be using. You can take pictures of text features that you might be studying in greater depth. You may rewrite some graphic organizers. Samples are helpful. And then following this, I would like you to include, after your samples, include that bibliography I talked about. And this is a bibliography of the resources that anybody picking up your unit will need in order to teach the unit. So if you think of it that way, I think it will help. The reference section for your paper is a professional, the professional articles and texts. The bibliography section for the appendix is what any teacher teaching the unit will need. So you're on your own, well, not really for this. What I mean by on your own is that there are not daily or every other day assignments for this. I'm just giving you the paper and the appendix along with the bibliography to complete. You do this on your own time, has to be done by June 30th, but I'm here to help you. That's my job, and I like to help you. So please feel free to email me, text me, or call me with any questions you have. We can sort it out. Okay, I'll see you online. Thanks.